Well, we have survived the worst of pumpkin tittism, or Trumpism is what the fuck you want to call it. But this guy Barney Frank, who's an openly gay guy and has been married to his gay lover, has wrote this article, and basically it's from his point of view. Basically, when asked about Republican control of the House in 1994, he answered that as a gay man and a left-handed Jew, he was basically used to being in the minority. Basically, he now ha- now not basically now he has to have in addition to that list. Um, I basically he believed the outcome of Trump's malign, ridiculous assault on the election results is evidence not of the fragility of our democracy but of its durability. And to the charge that basically and to the charge that minimizing the seriousness of the parade of horribles that culminated in the Trump lane of the venue where the voting math was stored by basically the response is that it's precisely the depths to which Trump and his minions had plunged, which convinced me that the pro-democratic forces in our country are strong today and they will get stronger over time. Most important is that the increasingly desperate schemes of the Trump, Colludi, Hawley, Cruz, QAnon alliance to subvert democracy never came close to succeeding. From the unbroken string of legal defeats inflicted on them by the Trump and non-Trump appointed judges alike, through the universally failed efforts to strong-arm the Republican state officials to lie about the election results, and to the unsuccessful pressure on Republican state legislative leaders to usurp the constitutional powers, and ending with a spectacularly counterproductive effort to prevent Congress from registering the results. At no point did this contemporary version of the gang that couldn't shoot straight pose any real threat to Joe Biden's inauguration. And this is not just good news about today, but it augurs very well for the future. Among the concepts with which we've all become too familiar with, going from 2008 to 2009, the financial crisis was the banking stress test. This consisted of constructing scenarios in which terrible conditions prevailed to see if the financial or other institutions could survive. Um, but in recent weeks and months, our political system has gone far beyond passing a very difficult stress test. It has emerged unbroken from a stressful reality with conditions so dismal that it would have been dismissed as excessively gloomy, but had it been put forward as a hypothetical by regulators. Our political system just withstood an all-out assault by a by a by a manically by a ma- yeah by a manically deluded squatter in a society that has been beset by a by a debilitate deep debilitating pandemic with its devastating economic and social impact, in which one of the two or major political parties was largely complicit, all facilitated by untrammeled access to social media. Um, I We cannot imagine any greater threat to democracy that does not involve heavily armed alien beings and the endowment of the Trump supporters, Rudy Colludi and Michael Flynn with superpowers. Nor is it plausible to argue that our escape from the abyss was fortuitous, a series of happy endings to events that easily could have ended badly, but the attempted attack of January 6th was a total failure because of a combination of several strengths and one weakness that are firmly embedded in our existing reality. The most compelling point is that the commitment of the majority of Americans to our constitutional process has survived the turmoil of the past decade. That majority is regrettably smaller than the near unanimity it has enjoyed, but it still is clearly large enough to see now that the more blatantly anti-democratic Trump's crusade became, the more unpopular it was. Going forward, it is the continued strong support of a large majority of voters that has created the dilemma for Republican politicians who face a choice between losing primaries to hardcore Trump supporters or losing general elections to candidates who support the genuine democracy. Next in importance is the steadfast loyalty of the military to democratic rule. Fear that there would be ambivalence or worse from the leaders of the armed forces was never well founded, and it now stands as one of the clearest lines of the demarcation between America and societies that have succumbed to authoritarianism. But next is a facet of human experience that is not particular to America, but in fact it was most famously misstated by an Englishman. In modern democratic societies, Lord Acton's assertion that power corrupts has been more that power corrupts has been more often the opposite of the truth than the expression of it. It is the absence of power that encourages irresponsibility, but politicians who lack the ability to affect events are shielded by that very impotence from the charge that their advocacy has had adverse consequences. While a majority of Republican federal office holders either actively tried to corrupt the electoral process or they were complicit in that effort, they were overwhelmingly those who had no real power at all. Like the Contra Lord Acton, Republicans of true power on the Supreme Court and the Senate, in Republican-run states like Georgia or Arizona, and among Republican leaders and state legislators, they did their constitutional duty. The last source of my optimism for the future is weakness. Specifically, it is the false bravado of the Trump minions whose attempted insurrection ended not with a bang but with whimpers. Basically, their comments were, "Please don't arrest me. Trump made me do it." Yeah, I don't think he did. I was just there to observe. I didn't know it was illegal. Yeah, you did. We cannot count on them always being intimidated in total inaction, as they were on Inauguration Day, and it is sad that our leaders will have to live with added security measures for some time to come. But the people to whom Hillary Clinton was too kind when she called them deplorables, are ironically a threat to the preservation of the very law and order that they claim to support, but not all to the survival of democracy. But there is a danger ahead, and not that the results of free elections will be disregarded, but that they will be fully executed. Despite a growing majority of voters opposing the intolerant populism, the joke of electoral college balance between the two approaches to governance is ominously slim. But here, as well, the impact of last year will be to bolster democracy, and the combination of the renewed appreciation of the positive role of government, evident in strong public support for COVID-19 relief, and the self-inflicted ongoing weakening of the Republican Party. But together, they give President Joe Biden a better chance than his two Democratic predecessors to enact policies that diminish the anger that has fueled the populist surge.